Hello, basketball world. This is 3 Better Than 2, and we're back. We're going to do a little bit different format today. Um, Coach Dylan Sells is with me. We'll just explain about training and player development a little bit. Coach Dylan, what have you been up to lately?
Nothing really. I applied for some high school jobs, and the process is taking too long. So I'm going to stay back at Ignatius, and been doing some open gyms and been working hard, and it's been pretty good. And then full package fall, we've been doing strictly just type of training stuff, so it's been good.
Nice. So a lot of parents, players, with the growth of training and trainers, and there's more NBA trainers than NBA players nowadays. So we just try to explain a little bit to people, and people maybe who are new to this. What is training? Where does it come from? What is player development? What's the difference? What kind of training there are? So there's no confusion. Maybe again, a lot of it's just my thoughts, an opinion. I'm not saying that it's 100% true, but just try to hear me out, and maybe you can explain, and you can always ask questions and comments. Write it down, whatever you see podcasts and YouTube. Don't hesitate to ask questions.
Yeah, we love interaction. We love some feedback. So if you guys have any, feel free to ask away.
So the first thing we're going to break in 7 ways of training. There's depending on players, depending on the time of the in-season, preseason, off-season, post-season, depending on a player, the way they learn. Is it a visual learner? Is it a guy or a girl who have to repeat something? Can they just hear it and understand? So depending on the person, those things, take space at different percentages of the training. But 3 of them, no matter what learner are you, will benefit, right? So I'll just give 7, and we'll just go over them one by one. So the first one is a strength. Second one is mental training. Third one is studying, which is film, maybe history, studying players, reading books. The next one is CLA. It's constraint-led approach. 5th one is block training. 6th one is peripheral training. And the last one, in-game training. And it can be consistent of playing and competing. And we'll go over that. Do you got anything?
More just like questions and going off all those lists. What age do you think is the right age for an athlete to search out specifically like the strength training aspect? Is the first one you mentioned.
I would say, again, that depending on the athlete and where they're in their growth, but you can start as young as you start playing basketball, right? But it can be a body training like push-ups, pull-ups, some core exercises, some plyometrics. I would say the younger you start, the more technique you can build. The running technique, the being efficient there, the jumping, landing, that will prevent you from injuries. So I feel like strength training, no matter what position or what place you are in, is beneficial. However, there is a limit to it, right? Like the strength versus size, let's say. If players get stiff or per se too big, not strong, that there's might be a diminish of return. So very rare, but there are a few players in my career that I had to suggest them to pull back on strength or change the program up where you don't get overtrained per se, and it just change up the training.
Yeah, a lot of people say it. Anthony Davis is one of those players that he like tried. Everyone was telling me he's so skinny, so he put on all the muscle and ended up like losing his agility, his little like shake and stuff, and ended up being like a 5. And then he like slowed down his weight training, and now it's back to like being a creative 4.
Yeah, I always give the examples when Kobe Bryant, that Lakers when Karl Malone and Gary Payton, and he put, I believe it was like 20 some pounds in the off season, and then he said that he just couldn't play like that. His average dropped, so during the season he have to lose some weight just to kind of get back to the normal per se.
Gotcha.
All right, we'll just go straight through it since we start with first strength. Like I said, I believe every player can benefit from strength trainer. If you're stronger at your position, you're gonna benefit, right? With more consistent shooting, attacking, physicality, right? So just there's different ways to do it, right? There's a basic training, there is plyometrics, there is stability training. There is so much information right now. So I would just say to players, depending on where they're at, right? Are they building basic fundamental? Are they polishing something? Do they try to be a better athlete? There's all kind of ways to do it. And without overthinking, I would just say players doing something helps better than just kind of get lost in information and not doing anything. So when you hear that strength do not benefit basketball, I would disagree. Even with Kevin Durant, everybody was saying like, oh, he couldn't bench 185 at a combine. However, his legs and his core was very strong. He worked a lot on it. And your core stability just brings synergy of your upper body and lower body. So if you want to be a better finisher, a better shooter, a better basketball player, you got to work on your core and shoulders and legs.
What would you say like is the most important maybe muscle group, or like is it plyometrics, balance, flexibility? What's like the number one thing that high school athletes should start working up to?
That's I would just mention the like the leg strength and plyometrics and speed and power. Core that brings everything together, and it's not just crunches, right? A lot of times people think core is just crunches or all bending. Core, actually, one of the function is to stabilize your body. So like one of the best core exercises, the front squats, right? Or any kind of not bending where you got to weight on one of the sides, let's say. So again, that, and then shoulders. Shoulders, I feel like, is a big part of just creating contact, taking the contact for the athletes. And a lot of times people forget basics, right? Which is some kind of squat or some kind of deadlift, which is hip hinge, some kind of presses, pulls. So a lot of times they overlooked and they do all these funny exercises that might be some NBA players doing. But again, there's a lot of times that they don't see the basic fundamental things.
So simplify your workouts and doing like what everyone has done for the past forever, and then when you get your body to a certain spot, then you can kind of advance into the specifics.
Yeah, and again, you probably shouldn't be maxed out during the season if you're a basketball player. There's always those other sides of the curves where people might be genetically gifted, or like, oh, I never lift and I jump. Well, you probably have good genetics, so a lot of times people would do that, or some genetic freak who jumps really well will sell a jumping program that worked for him.
Right.
And maybe 99% of programs would work for him. And then the kids would be frustrated not following it. So I would say very individual approach. I'm not a big believer of team lift per se. As a building camaraderie, it's a one good thing. Maybe building fundamentals, maybe learning how to, squat, which
technique.
Yeah, right. So, but again, it takes different times, right? Like the people with a long femur or different arm length is gonna bench different than the other guy, or squat different than the other guy. Or some people have a short legs and long arms, they're perfect for deadlift.
Right.
And then you would compare them to some taller guy who cannot squat, whose hilt comes up, right? Who just doesn't have ankle mobility to do it. And then people would force them and push them to it.
Yeah, I think in the pre-draft workouts, everyone was making fun of Wemby because he wasn't able to do like a lot of push-ups or whatnot. And then like the scientists came out and said, well, he's actually like one big push-up is like him pushing up 80 more pounds than his body weight from the distance and the angles that, you know, his big self.
Yeah, just from the shoulder length from physics, right? I agree with that. Yeah, that would be with strength. So again, I would say every player at all point of time should be working on some kind of strength program or maintenance, or even, you know, you can downward intensity if it's a postseason, but there should be something. So it will benefit you, especially with injury prevention, right? Not overbeating, but making it stronger and working, you know, not just muscle and your tendons and ligaments. And there's different ways to do it. I heard recently, and I love this phrase, the strongest guys are not the best movers. So there is this, again, diminishing of the return of your strength versus power you create, or agility or quickness of your muscles. And that trains a little bit different. Yeah, you got anything to add?
No. Well, you do see, like, I mean, watching Modest's progression into the NBA, and he's able to bump these guys. And if you look, like, Modest doesn't look like the strongest guy, but he just knows how to use leverage. His core is strong. He's did a really good job on working on his shoulders, where Steven Adams is probably the strongest guy in the NBA. He picks up grown men just whenever he wants to.
Right.
But you don't see him, like, if he gets the ball in the post, he's not able to, like, back everyone down, and just so he's so strong, but he's still stiff with his movements.
All right. I agree with that. That's a good example of just understanding leverage, and apply strength versus just being strong, you know, weight room strong or look big.
Right.
All right. Next one. Again, I feel like now with this growing, you know, focus on mental, and it's kind of a lot of, you know, things coming out, and players feel a certain way, and the confidence and all that. So I feel like mental part of the game is really good, especially if you go to higher level, right? Like, you can kind of suck it up, right? When you're younger, and you're like, it's going to work out. But when it's your job and your family, you know, it's on the line, it's a little different. Your mental, you know, stability, your mental focus. So I think there's ways to do it. I'm not saying just go and find psychologists, right? But there are books, there's techniques, there's breathing techniques. I think diet is a big part of just building your mental strength, because you have to persevere through something. Lifting, right? Being disciplined, building a program, following a program, building a routine, building good habits. That's all takes this mental capacity and mental stability. Like I said, building a routine for training, right? For basketball training, for strength training, for school. A lot of athletes, you know, before they start playing pro, have time of the day and that they can spend to work on other things, right? Outside of, that's not just your job. There's multiple things, multi-sport athletes. So it gets distracted. It gets hard on people and players. And there's, you know, people ask a lot of times, and I would usually have some answer. Again, I feel like that is very individual, and it's different approach with everybody. Some people might be, you know, talk through it. Some people might have to do something. Some people might have to do some kind of exercise for it. Some people might have to be a quiet time, you know, before they go to sleep without anything, just you and your thoughts. Some people need other people to help them and have that communication with somebody, and, you know, friends or family. Again, I believe it's very individualized, and people have to find it. I don't think I have an answer for just to how to fix it.
Right. There's no like direct path, but especially in the high school realms now, there's so much pressure on getting scholarships and, you know, looking good in your specific sport on social media, and like you know, there's some people that don't have plan Bs, but in the area that we're kind of in, like it's, you know, the highest glitz and glamour, prestigious you could get, and everyone really wants to get Division One, and that kind of like lays a toll on kids who might not ever achieve that. And is there a certain thing that you'd suggest, like how do you find in yourself what's the best way to help you with your mentals? Like what would you suggest to kids, ask kids that, then if they respond to you, what would they say? Then how would you be able to tell them some type of solution?
Well, there is upside down bell curve of the pressure and the way you perform. So if there's no pressure, their performance is, you know, not as well.
Right.
And then it comes up and it's a certain amount of pressure. And for different people, it's different. And then you highest perform at a certain amount of pressure.
Right.
Now, when pressure gets too much, the performance drop. So I would suggest to kids to find that it might not be in the middle. It might be some people perform better at the higher pressure, right? But I would suggest to find that middle for them, of that place and time where they feel less pressure and they lose themselves in the game or in a practice or in whatever it is, in a match, and they play there, right? How do you find that? Again, it's very individual. Some people, you know, their curve might go up, 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 and down, you know, at the 3 with the pressure out of 10.
Right.
Some people might go all the way to 9 and only drop at 10. And those are, you know, players who perform the best at their best at the highest pressure. That happens to depend on the person, right? So like find that equilibrium for you where you're the best, and understanding how to shut down the pressure or how move it around.
Yeah, I know for me, like growing up always, it was when I took something too seriously, that's when I couldn't accomplish anything. So I actually saw somebody else experience on the show Psych. It's like a fake psychic detective, if you guys never seen it, but he had to solve like this really important case, and like every time he got fully serious, he wasn't able to think and process it. And he's like, I need to do all these weird, goofy things to be able to process it. And I was like, honestly, that's how I've been like my whole life. Like when I really like fully take everything so seriously, even in coaching, like I don't perform to my highest level. There has to be like joking, making fun of somebody, or like making fun of myself, or just being goofy in the sense. And that's when I'm able to achieve my best.
Yeah, well, I mean, good example, Modest, when he kind of on his own and just enjoying and having fun, he's the best, right? But when he he just gets serious about it, it hinders a little bit his joy for the game, and it just kind of hinders a little bit his performance. For example, but his brother is a little different. He's better when he's serious. When he goofs around, it doesn't perform as well. He's you know, he might be a little sloppy. He might forget here and there. Technique. Right. So he's not as best but when he locks in, and you can see from the warm up, right, just where they at. So again, there you go. Same family, 2 players, very different approach in how they do it. So their pressure is different too. All right, let's move on next. Let's go. Next one was CLA, which is constraint-led approach. And that's a big movement now. They put a name to it. It has been done for a long time, but what it is just put players in uncomfortable situation where they have to make decision versus block training. We'll talk about it a little bit later. Let's say you're playing 3-on-3 game without dribbles, right? That's an example of constraint-led approach. Let's say you play 1-on-1 game, but you can only go left, or you can only shoot layups or jump shots, or you can only finish with 1 foot with a defender. That's a constraint-led approach. You're playing 5-on-5 off something, right? Like you have to score off the screen or zoom action.
Yeah, with some type of rule.
Yes. So then you always have some kind of constraint, and it simplifies your decision so you can build that to make a decision in a real game. So eventually it builds up to 5-on-5. Again, it's a cool sound word. People have been doing it for a long time to make decisions. Again, usually it comes to 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, maybe 4-on-4, and then eventually it jumps in a game. Last maybe 2 years, this guy in Europe, I believe it started in Europe, and this guy is like an expert. People flying him everywhere. He's like this big guru of CLA. But again, a lot of trainers or a lot of coaches have been doing it. It just didn't have name. I believe it should be probably a biggest percent of training. Depending on the player, right? Like if it's a guy who just starting playing basketball and doesn't know what's a double dribble or treble, or how to finish layups, block training would be probably the highest percentage they should do. But I think CLA should be probably biggest part of the practices, per se, as a basketball coach, and the training. So how do you figure out, right? You cannot do it alone. So it's harder to do on one-on-one trainings. There's a percentage to it, there's a certainty to it, but I do believe that CLA has to take a biggest chunk of the player development, of the time of training, right? So, do you got anything on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when I've done this in a training or practice session or whatever, it's been like, okay, the basketball's so bad, I'm taking away dribbles. And it's just like, it's crazy to see, like, it just opens up like, oh, this is where I should be moving now to make passing available. And my head's up now that I'm not always dribbling, and I can make reads, and the basketball gets better, and there's actually more scoring, and like the defense even gets better because now I can pressure more because there's no dribbling. He can't go by me, so I'm more confident in guarding. And then the very next game, you go back to no dribbles, and now you see like, okay, their head's back up, they're making the same cuts, but now it's just like, oh, it's a regular game of basketball. So that's usually it comes when I'm doing it, like as a punishment because the basketball's bad. Basically, it's when you take away no dribble or take away the dribble.
I agree, and that's a great example. I think this kind of explain why CLA is important part of the training. Stress equals growth. Put players in an uncomfortable situation that can handle stress and failure. And like you said, it doesn't look pretty at first, right? Even at a higher level. Even if you put a 17U, right, who would dribble to try to play without dribbles, there would be certain pushback, right? Then you break perfectionists, right? Like people who try not to make mistakes.
Right.
That helps them because it's imperfect. The game is imperfect. You try to find it, but you got to learn how to play through those imperfections, right? And as they say, failure is education.
Right.
So you want them to fail at certain things. So you want to put constraint on it. You want to put something, out of ordinary where they have to make a decision. Anything else?
No, I think basically like what you said, and I know we talked about it on the first podcast we did together, is like getting athletes comfortable in failing and then having them find solutions out of it. I think it's like the more constraints you put on them during their training and whatnot, they're gonna like get frustrated because they want to go back to the way they've done it, and now they're gonna be able to like, okay, like that was like a failure. Now I'm gonna be able to find my way throughout the solution. So I really like it. I finally found out the term of what it was, but I feel like it's been part of our training here for a long time.
Right. Next part of the training is block training, and that's the most known part of training. And I believe that it's a very important part of any player, especially elite players on a high level. And I do believe that a lot of times, in my opinion, players should do that on their own. So the block training, the players should do that on their own. They can study something, they can try to repeat something, like the ball handling a lot of times, because it grows them. It makes them their own coach. And when it makes you your own coach, you don't need anybody to get better. So I do think, and a lot of times, a lot of trainers do that, right? When they say, oh, I'm doing training, that's mean they working on something, on some execution of a move, of a ball handling, of a drill. And again, depending on, like, young players should have a big part of their training as a block training. Then I feel like the curve kind of goes and dips, and then there's another things to develop player until they go to elite level. And that's where block training is important too, because that's how you improve your game, or you add new elements to your game. You maybe fix something, right? Like the shooting or percentage or whatever it is, it goes back up. So again, but I've, in my opinion, there's a lot of players who's spending too much time in the block training with the trainers. And then when the game comes, they don't know how to apply it. They don't know when to use it. They don't understand what exactly it is. So then, a trainer can say, oh, he just doesn't know how to do it. Like that's not on me. But they don't know how to make a decision. So with that comes the progression on teaching the skill. And again, a lot of players and parents misinform, and they're missing this. So the first one is perception. Second one is decision. Third one is execution. And the fourth one is feedback. And a lot of times coaches and trainers start with execution. So they're missing a perception and they're missing a decision. And that's, I don't want to say most important, but that's what connects skills and drills.
Right.
So a lot of players and a lot of trainers missing that. And I would encourage you again to research or educate yourself. I always give example of, let's say you're a very skilled player, but you're not strong enough and you get bumped off to your drive, versus a football kid who can only go right, but he knows how to use that skill.
Right.
So then it comes with skills versus application of skills. And if you don't have application of skills, it does not matter how skilled you are. You can be a best shooter in the gym with no defense and no game. But if you cannot handle pressure, if you're not fast enough in a shot, if you don't know how to set up, where to be, how to make decisions on the fly, how to sprint and transition in the corner, all this, it doesn't matter how good of a shooter you are. If you're shooting 2 times a game because you don't know how to get your shots out of offense, you don't understand what coach wants, you don't understand how to manipulate defense, then it doesn't matter how great of a shooter you are, because you are not, because you don't know how to apply it. So again, a lot of times this block training takes up too much time of young athletes and young adults and high school players. And a lot of practices, like a 5-0, that's a block training for team, I would say, right? And it takes up a lot of time because there's no variation there. So, and if defense switch up one time, it's over. It breaks down. So now players don't know how to make decisions. And I guess that irks me. And a lot of times I feel like people is either not educated or miseducated on that topic. And they think, oh, it's, I'm training. Well, it's like, yeah, that's great. You are training, but you're doing block training. What about other? What about CLA? What about peripheral training? Well, how do you apply that to in-game training? We'll talk about this later, but again, that's a biggest part of training, or the word training is, but it's a very small part of player development. And I do believe that a lot of players should do that on their own to get better.
Yeah.
You got anything?
Yeah. And we see that, like, you're very passionate about this because, people just don't fully understand, like, they just say they're going to training, or like this trainer is the next blah, 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 or whatever. And I kind of put trainers in like 4 different categories. One is a facility trainer. They just have access to the gym, so you can go train with them because you can get you in a gym whenever. The second trainer is a rebounder. They're just going to tell you how great you are, and they can go rebound for you, and they're not going to be able to, like, advance your game, but they're
correct.
Just going to tell you how good you are. The third one is, like, I call them a Gucci trainer, because it's like glitz and glamour with the bag that you get, right? The Gucci bag. You do all these like tween, blah, blah, 360 lays, but you can't really do it in the game. And then there's like the true basketball trainers.
Right.
And I think you kind of described like what a true basketball trainer is, about how can they apply the skill to games.
Yeah.
And I think majority of people that train or like people start training with are the Gucci bag trainers, because it's like it looks cool on social media. They're doing all these moves. They're going like 360 over a cone, laying it on 1-on-0, and it's like, oh, look at what my kid could do. And then they get the games, and then the Gucci bag trainer always like, oh yeah, the coach just doesn't know how to play your son. Like he's so talented. Look at what he's doing. And I think like when you're a parent or an athlete looking for a trainer, the first thing you need to find is somebody that will tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And then that will be able to, and then you will see the people that they have trained and how they apply what they train to the games. That's what I advise athletes and parents to really look for, not just look for the 150,000 followers on Twitter or Instagram or whatnot.
That's a good way to put in categories. And again, there's a place and time for it. You know, like when I was younger and I trained myself, I wish I would have a rebounder,
100%.
right? Or the access to the gym, right? So again, it's a new thing, but for us as older players, like we had to figure out how to find a player to watch what they do in games, right? There was no training videos except maybe Better Basketball, which is very outdated, right? And then we found that we go to the gym or outside, and then we just work on that move or whatever it is. And then you try to use it in 1-on-1s, and then you try to use it in 2-on-2s and 3-on-3s, and then slowly work your way in. Maybe you'll use it in practice. So then eventually it grows, your skill grow, right? And if you don't like it, if you don't know how to use it, you just kind of trash it out and find something that might work for you. But yeah, that's a good way to put it. I always give this example, to trainers. Let's say you're working on this, 2-3 dribble pull up, right? It's good. There's a place and time for it, right? You work a lot on it. But then you go to high school season and 75% of team would play zone. Like, then what, right? So then do you understand at what angle, or like how to attack the zone? Are you going baseline? Are you going 45? Like, where do you put those dribbles? What do you cut through? Who do you screen? So then there's just so many variation. Right? Like I guess the biggest skill that everybody should work on a block training, I would say, than shooting, right? Because it doesn't go away. If you can catch and shoot, and your footwork is correct, and your speed is correct, and your accuracy, so catch and shoot is probably the best skill that you need to work on. Right. Like ball handling, right? Really, like it's not about ball handling. It's like, what do you get there? Like, don't over dribble, be efficient.
Efficiency.
Like we talk about ball handling versus dribbling. So how do you get to the spots? What are the spots to get to? How do you protect the ball, right? Where on the floor do you need to be, right? Because you can dribble anywhere, and then you go behind the backboard and then try to make a play out of there and jumping, right? So there's a place and time for everything. And I think a lot of people, again, spending time on a wrong kind of training a lot, and they feel good about it because they're working, but it never connects. Well, for some it does, right? So there's a good examples, right? It's always this outside of the curve that works. How are some people, like we talk about Ben Uth, right? Well, he said he never trained per se basketball, but he's just a natural athlete and understand, and he has anticipation. He understands the patterns. He can read patterns. So then he understands where to be, when to be, and he uses and control his body so well that he doesn't need to practice those things. And he just kind of naturally plays with it. Again, there's examples like that too. Right. So he can tell everybody, boy, I never trained. But the guy is a Division I player with a 46% three-point shot last season on a good clip. So there's guys like this. But some people train every day, hours and hours and hours.
Right, in the gym, 8 hours a day.
And they have a good career. or some of them don't have good careers.
Right.
So there's always, I guess, the outsides, right?
Right.
But the majority, I feel like, need to be educated on what training is and what's the important part of it. Anything on that?
No, I think we said it all.
All right, we got 2 more left. So there's other one, and that one is tricky. And I don't know what exact percentage of your training should it be. Well, for some, it might be 0, right? But for some, it might be more. It's called peripheral training. This is where it doesn't fully connect that particular training or skill to the in-game stuff, right? So, for example, people who have bad hands, no matter what, how many times they catch the ball, it might never change that, right? So then, again, just a silly example. What if they juggle, right? Let's say they juggle. So now their eye and hand coordination becomes much better. So then it's not even about, any kind of training. It's just this proprioception or perception of the ball and the distance and hand coordination that helps you to do it. So again, it's not fully translated. You would never juggle the ball or basketballs in a game, but it will dramatically improve it, right? We have examples like when you do handoffs, right, in full package practices. It's one of the big things. Rolling the ball on the floor, doing handoffs. So it's not fully translate, but it works on staying low, big steps, lunges, injury prevention, hands coordination, speed, strides, right? So it's like you just start picking out little things that translate to your game, not fully, right? The good examples are Kevin Durant warm-ups. If you watch his warm-ups on the shots, he does all these turns and squats and silly things that worked on his equilibrium, his balance, his eyes finding a target fast, his hands, his core engagement. So they look silly, but it's not translate, again, the straight line translation, but it somehow helps them in the game, right? By being ability controlling the body, finding balance faster, locking in eyes on the basket, just little things. I know one of the trainers who's very polarized right now, Michael Lancaster, I feel like a lot of stuff, his part is like that. He does a lot of peripheral training that gets a lot of likes and stuff, and it looks silly, like with a fit ball thrown at you, or picking stuff off the cones off the table. Again, it might not fully translate, but it challenge your body, your eyes, your coordination, like ball handling, right? Like if you're an elite player, as a warm-up, maybe you don't need to spend a lot of time. But as a young player, to understand how to use your both hands at the same time, or opposite, or doing one hand one thing and another, it just helps you to kind of recognize the patterns and use your body better, right? So I feel like it's important, right? It might not be pretty or beautiful and it doesn't translate to the game, but it's important for a young player to do those things. So again, I don't know exact percentages of that training, but it should be some part. And again, I feel like depending on what your situation is, what you struggle with, it's different, right? It might be go from 0, not 100, but from 0 to a certain percentage, right, where you're working on some skill.
There's like stuff that we did, in our caramel warm-ups, or I stole some did Ignatius, like the balloon kind of keeping it up while dribbling, or hitting the ball back and forth to each other when you're holding your own ball. I stole that and put that to Ignatius. We call it special conditioning. I think it's just like ways that you could work on skills and having fun. And the big one I do for like the 8th grade and freshmen is we do knee tag. Yeah, it works on getting low, using your offhand, lunging, like, and kind of like defensive stuff too, but mostly just like all your stance stuff. And I think it's just like a unique, fun way to work on basketball, but not fully have the stress of like getting better at basketball. Like this is a fun way to do something with your teammates or do something that's going to get me better, but not just like, here I go again, training for the same sport. It gets your like mindset a little different.
Yeah. Like Madison form shooting, right? Or maybe medicine finishes, just to understand touch better or something like that, right? But yeah, every practice we start either with some kind of tag or knee tag, or knee tag with dribbling, some kind of offhands.
The Kentucky
the tag with the two teams. Yeah. So again, it's not fully training, but I call it peripheral training, and I just made up the term. So if you got better suggestions, go ahead. Maybe some trainer can help me out, or some coaches. Playing the game in 3 baskets, right? That's one of it. So good. Then it makes you awareness, communication, awareness, the awareness on the floor, awareness of your teammates, looking up, predicting things, right? Like anticipating the movements. It's on a high, right? And sometimes it's so much thinking while playing that even 5-on-5 can simulate that. So it challenges players, it frustrates them, and it makes them think faster and talk more and communicate with the teammates. And playing this, like a weird game, it's not 5-on-5, right? That doesn't translate. But it's one of the pretty good things that I do, and I really like it. What do you got?
No, that's about it on that.
All right. And then the last one, and I think it's the most important one. And again, it doesn't have a lot of percentage because it's harder to simulate, but it's in-game training. And there's 2 ways you can do it. You can be playing, or you can competing. And competing is the highest level of in-game skills, right? The playing is when there is less restrictions. Maybe in full package, I know we do those long games. We play games to 100, 160, 200, usually 161 or 201. I remember like the 2023 class with like Modest and Mark and Jake Fegan, twins. They would tell how fun it was, those Sunday games with 221.
Right.
So we play those long quarters, and then with maybe 1-2 sub, you just play a long game. There's a lot of things you can do. That's where your players who you might not trust in the real games, you might find out that they're your best playmakers. The guys who maybe miss his first few shots end up shooting well, and you find out that psychologically he's struggling somewhere to making the shots, right? So you put too much pressure on the first 2, and after that he relaxes and he shoots better. Like Mark would play point guard most of the games. So we'll build the teams where he can make plays for others. And it became his identity. Or like Modest, right? He would be a big, but because we saw how he saw the game in those long games. Because in the real games, when he was younger, he was just skinny and not strong and got pushed around a lot. So he had a lot of turnovers, and we had to live with it. But the thing was that we saw in the practices how he read the game, how he was on a different level. So then it challenges me as a coach, or challenged me as a coach, to give them ball in his hands and work on that, because I saw in those long games. Right. So again, a lot of times this is the most important one, because that you can experiment with your game. You can shoot some bad shots without pressure. You don't play like 100% full out defense until the end of the game, right? When it's close. So then it gives you this little bit more opportunities to work on the moves, to have less pressure, to understand the decision and perception and how to use those skills, how to use those moves in it. And again, one of the things I've been talking to like NBA and G League coaches, and I would encourage them to play long games in a practice. And they all agree that they don't play enough in the practice. And then they expect players to make these decisions in those small games, or they go 1, 2, 3 trips and that's it. So then the pressure of every shot is so much more. So only your best players who are going to keep shooting those shots or keep making those plays. So now the guys who are in the boxes and in the roles will be in the boxes and in the roles in those scenarios. And again, don't get me wrong, those are great. I love short games
Right.
because they very close to the end game situation, but it's not always end game situations. So then you got to learn. That's where development comes over winning at that particular moment. And a lot of times on a younger age, that's exactly how it should be.
Right.
The development should trump winning. And I believe that a lot of times nowadays, it's unfortunate that it's not how it is.
Yeah, I know a lot of movement in youth sports switching programs up because, well, we lost both our games at the one-day shootout this weekend to this team, so I need to go play over there because they're, just better players or whatever. And it's like, when has the goal been to win a bunch of youth league games like in your life? Like that's, it's all about your progression. And there's sometimes that we played games at the warehouse where I had to get like upset about some people that were working on their game and they were trying to do too much and not really just play the game to win the game. But at the higher level, there's stuff like you have to be able to be okay with making mistakes in those longer games. And then when you play shorter games, like, yeah, you want to, compete and try to win those games. And, how do you differentiate, like what games should people be looking to play in that they should just be kind of working on their craft? Then also, how do you get kids to work on games where they're just working to compete and to win the game?
So I would say, let's say you're an 8th grader. You have maybe a school team you play for, a feeder, and AAU.
Okay.
Right. So I would say in AAU, you should really and again, winning is a part of development of the player. I do believe like you want to win, you want to compete. That's part of it. And at the higher level, it's the only part, honestly.
Right. Well, you always said like with the 76ers, you're like, okay, they're just like tanking and taking and tanking. Well, all those players are never learning how to win games because they're just like, they're supposed to be losing this game. And that's honestly, you still see the effects of all those players that went through the 76 organization. They haven't won no championships. They're not really playing in the playoffs that often. Like you still have that same mentality.
Right.
They never like learned how to win.
Yeah. So that's, part of being a winner versus loser. So you do try to win game at some point, but again, you got to sacrifice sometimes a winning to get development on some levels.
Right.
So again, let me give you an example. Let's say you're 8th grader and you have a middle school team, you have an AAU and you have a feeder. In AAU, you should think about your development. How do you interact with other players? How do you play against elite players? How do you impact the game and impact the winning while try to use your thing, right? Because there's no pressure. There's not a lot of tournaments.
Right.
There's a lot of showcase games or the one-day shootouts. So again, it doesn't matter how great of an 8th grader you are. As a matter of fact, all best middle schoolers never become good in college. So in the long term, like if you watch players who rank now, in 4 years, you're not going to know who they are. Very rare, because they get better good too early. They pick too early. So then it hinders their development. So in the middle school games, I would say concentrate on winning.
Right.
You represent your school. You want to, it's a league. You probably need to be certain place to go in a playoff.
Right.
And there's a playoff, right? So then they're play zone, right? Like do whatever you do to win,
right?
While developing kids in practices and enjoying the process, making them better human beings,
right?
But your goal, win the game. Play 8 players and not 12, right? But in a feeder, what's the goal of the feeder?
In the first half,
or that play feeder as what is the point of feeder? For you to be prepared for high school,
right?
For varsity level, right? So if you're 8th grader, you 1, 2, 3 years away from being the best you,
right?
So then don't be afraid to lose games. Yeah, you represent your school. You know what? I'll give an example. Maine South, feeder, so good. They win so many games.
Right.
So many games. And then when they go, it changes. So they sacrifice development for winning at that age where it didn't translate to the varsity level. Right. And I don't know the reasons, and I don't want to point them out.
Right.
I just know that's how it was.
Right.
Like all New Trier kids used to not like playing in South. All the GBS kids used to not like play South. GBN, they don't like playing in South either. And then there's somewhere some loss of that to the winning on a high level. So again, what is important for you? Yeah, we beat you 3 years ago. Well, okay, that's great.
Right. You may get your 8th grade medal, but
yeah,
these are regional sectionals.
Right. And that's so again, like what's more important to you? So there's the example. AU do all development, feeder all development in the 3-4 year return. And then your middle school, you should go in championship.
Yeah, because then middle school is like the most pure because you're playing with your best friends that you've grown up with, and your
neighborhood.
You're just like going for it all together. I know this summer we struggled with Vince a little bit. Maybe it was the springtime that when we had like warehouse workouts and then we'd do runs, and he'd just be like, the game was just so easy for him that he'd be like doing really working on his game and just like kind of disrupting the flow of it. So how do you find better games for like high elite players in each scenario? Because not everyone's as well connected as we are, where we got college guys, pros guys around. What if you're not in a community that have that? What do you suggest the elite players do?
Maybe have some restraints for them or some constraints where they can only catch and shoot, or they can only dunk and shoot mid-range jumpers or 1 foot, gotcha. Right? Or make sure they crash every offensive rebound, or try to play in a long game and make more than 10 assists, right? So get just some constraints to make the game harder, to make decisions more difficult, to even out others outside, find other players. Like we are fortunate enough in Illinois area and Chicago area, there's a lot of great players.
Right.
You can always find guys who play, and you can always like Illinois prospects, they always have those runs.
Some type of run,
that you can sign up for the league. Like the Lemont in the Lithuanian league is really good.
Right.
You can always try to get in leagues like that in a men's league.
Grown men.
Chicago is a really good men's league, right? Try to get in there if you're a college player or elite high school player. You probably don't want to play in LA Fitness, but find those good runs and challenge yourself. Go try to be the guy there.
One other thing is kind of like more mindset thing. You kind of came up with a term of like play like you're at a playground, and play like if you lose, you don't got next.
Oh yeah, the principles of busy playground.
Yes. Can you describe that a little bit for us, and then can you tell us how that we could implement that mindset into athletes?
Well, that's actually a term that I took from Joe Crispin. He was playing NBA. He played in Europe. He's now assistant coach at Penn State.
Okay.
And that 3-basket game, I took it from his practice. He was a really good Division III coach, and his practice was insane. So I really loved it. He's on the very far spectrum of only strong survive.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting to hear him on one of the basketball conferences, the clinic that I was at. So principle of busy playground is this. When you show up in a busy playground, you first need to get in the game. So you either have to be known or you have to pass eye test. Right. So like if you don't have a eye test first, you're going to wait longer. So then when you get a chance, you need to understand how to stay on a court, which is play through your best players, play really hard defense, understand the dynamic, understand like the alpha beta competitiveness nature of man. So then winning is the only way you stay. So then there's nothing more important than winning. There is no time to experiment on your game at a busy playground. It's just not a time and place. It's a very competitive environment. So then if you're not the guy, you're going to struggle. And then if you lose, you're going to wait for so long that it adds you this pressure to stay, right? So then a lot of older players grew through that, right? We didn't have gyms to go. So a lot of times we play outside in a busy playground, and that's how you survive. And a lot of times now we have part of practices where I let the kids figure out, where I let them play just games, just playing the games, just figure out with their teammates. Sometimes I give them the board, even in a young age, like 6th grade, I'll give them a board and say, hey, you guys can draw a play when you out, or maybe go over some offense that you can run or something, and just give them this responsibility. And it works a lot. Our 7th grade was very beneficial with that. We have a really good grade, and they took it very interesting. They love to write these plays down or cheat the play out of some kind of structure that we give them.
Right.
So it gives them responsibility, it gives them something, but that's what we don't have that a lot right now, right? We go straight from everything to these big times games. Like for high school, right? You only have 30 games a season. So now, and a big conference, like we have 18 conference games in the Catholic League. So then you go from practice, boom, Bennett, practice, Marist, practice, St. Pat's, practice, Marian Catholic. So then you just go from these big jumps, right? Where those competitive games before that, right? So then again, during the season, we would go outside and play.
Right.
As a high school player or college, I would go and find those grown man games or plays or whatever it is. So you're always looking for those games that are competitive enough, but it doesn't hurt you, like the pressure, right? We talk about the pressure curve. So that's why I think it's a really good thing. The principles of busy playground.
No, I just really like that whole mindset thing, and honestly, that's kind of how it was growing up. So it's like, how do we portray that to these kids nowadays? That they just find another gym to play in, or if they lose their ball, they just go get another one real quick.
Yeah. Well, again, you can do those like in-house leagues, right?
Right.
Make them playoff where you lose, you out, right? Like if you get a pool games and then you make the playoffs, and then the losers out have to watch winners, right? Or they have to wait a certain amount of games. If you lost, you're in the cancellation bracket, and you might not play because we might not finish on time. Right. So then it hurts if it doesn't, right? So just get a little bit of pressure from that, like a peer pressure. Or just have, like let's say you have 21 players, instead of play 5-on-5 and 4-on-4, have 7 teams of 3. Right. So if you lose, you have to wait two times, right? So much longer. So then it gives you this little extra pressure to do it, right? Excuse me. All right, anything? The last one I want to finish, just kind of a new skill progression. And just to explain a little bit where do you start and how do you go with. And depending on player, again, depending on where they at and depending on the skill, it, of course, changes. Sometimes with an elite player, you might show him a move and he might use it next game, right? In between games or the halftime. Right. But some players, you might work on them for months before they can make a decision in a game to do something, right? So again, the first one, so it's kind of new skill acquisition. First one is showing or watch film. Like the coach might show you, the player might show you, might see it at the film, at the game, right? So showing is the first one, just a kind of visual. Then a walkthrough. You walking through the move, maybe you know, as a different learner, you gotta see, you gotta learn how to walk through that. The next one is a good step. Teach it back. If you can teach it back, you can understand it a little bit better.
So that's like asking the athlete, hey, what did I just say? Or can you show me what we're working on?
Yep. So a lot of like I know Colin Stack is really good at that. Like I know if he can teach me back or he can say back to me, he got it. So it was like a test for me and him that if he understood. So even in the game, I could ask him something or, tell him something. And then if he would kind of teach it back or understand it, repeat it back to me with a full understanding, I knew he got it. Right. So again, just depending on players. Then you start from doing it slow to faster to game speed. So it's a repetition, right? And again, depending on move and skills, you can always vary. Then you do it against dummy defender or constrained defender, right? So like a coach sits on your right hand, so now you got to go left, or you're working on left hand layups. Then you go on a 1-on-1. Then you go on 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4 to 5-on-5 to eventually in game.
Right.
So again, it depending on where the skills are. And I told even elite players sometimes struggle with something. So I told them, hey, like, don't be afraid, slow it down, make it stick, make it understand what you're doing, and then slowly speed up, mess up, pull back. Speed up, mess up, pull back. So it's not a always linear, but you go back and forth, and then you eventually move up. So that's the way I think a new skill progression works. You got anything on that?
No, sounds good to me.
All right, so then I'll just repeat again. 7 things for training: strength, mental training, studying, which includes film, players, books, history, CLA, constraint-led approach, block training, peripheral training, and in-game training that contains playing and competing, which is a little bit different things. Anything?
No, I think again, like we put these episodes out wanting feedback or questions, and we're gonna be active in the comments and on all the platforms we have. So if you have any questions, like there's not a greater mind around the Chicago area than Meech, and I think he'll be able to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you.